2026 is going to be an awesome year. We got some pretty cool stuff coming up. First off, we got Foundations of Recovery. This is our flagship program. We're starting it in January.
This is for anyone, man, woman, or couple who wants to come and reclaim their heart from shame, trauma, and betrayal. We start off with an education on all sorts of principles, give you the common language. We feed you from a fire hose in terms of all things recovery.
It is such a great start to recovery. And we get at the roots of things, Tyler. This isn't like any other program. Like, this is our healing journey in process, and Foundations is where we begin.
If you look at the value that you're getting there to kick off a good recovery with all of the right education, all of the right language, and a team to get you started while also being directed by Brannon and myself through the whole process, what a deal.
So if you're interested, if you're struggling, if you've been wanting to do something for a long time, jump into this. This only comes around every so often, and we would love to have you there.
Click the link in the description to sign up for it. And to make it even sweeter, we're also including a raffle for a free pass to the Radiant Dawn retreat. Anyone who signs up for Foundations will be added to the raffle for that free Radiant Dawn pass. If you're a man and you sign up for Foundations, your name still gets entered, and you can give that pass away if you win it to any woman that you want to.
So what you're saying, Tyler, is if you sign up and participate in Foundations, you could possibly go to Radiant Dawn for free?
That's exactly what I'm saying, which is crazy because Foundations by itself is already an insane value.
Man, I sound so salesy. But it actually is awesome. So come to Foundations. And even if you don't come to Foundations, sign up for Radiant Dawn. It's beyond therapy, the best healing experiences that you can have.
Click the link below and come join us. Welcome to the Therapy Brothers podcast.
I'm Brannon.
I'm Tyler.
We're brothers.
We're therapists.
And we know recovery.
Bring your stories, your questions, your successes with real recovery.
Hey, Tyler, you ready to have some hard conversations?
Let's do it.
Let the Therapy Brothers podcast begin. Welcome to Therapy Brothers. Welcome back. Today we're talking about, I think, something very important. But before I get into that, I just want to let you know that it is just me again today. So if you don't want to listen to just me babble on, you go listen to another podcast. But I think you'll like the topic that we're talking about today. I just went to lunch with my brother and not Tyler, my other brother. And just our family is very tight. I'm tight with my sisters. I have two sisters and two brothers, and I don't talk much about like my other siblings because you guys know Tyler really well. But I'm really close with all of them, and I'm close with both of my sisters. I'm close with both of my brothers. And I was just thinking about it today, having gone to lunch with Rex. I read somewhere that said the thing that gives the thing that gives you more life satisfaction than anything else is your relationship with your siblings. And that's an interesting one for me. My relationship with my siblings is probably one of the most important things in my life. And your siblings are different, obviously, than friends because they have a knowing, they have an understanding of where you come from. And so not just the knowing, but they even share with you certain lenses and perspectives that you go through life with. So as things happen in life, you can bounce stuff off of them, and they understand you on a level that is different than other people can understand you. And friends, I have a lot of lifelong friends, a lot of long-term friends, which I'm so grateful for. But a lot of friends come and go. Siblings, they don't. And I I have a friend who's having some issues with his brother, and his brother's not wanting to have a relationship with him. And I just think that brother who is not wanting to have that relationship, like, doesn't understand what he's actually given up. So anyways, I'm saying all this just to tell my siblings how much I love them, Tyler included. They really are, it's my family, my kids, and then my siblings and my parents, that they're everything to me. So we come from an amazing family that I'm just so blessed to have. So I just wanted to say that, how blessed I am. Okay. I had a very interesting day yesterday, actually, and I had different topics to talk about today, but I couldn't, after my experience yesterday, actually, not talk about this. So, my wife randomly, she got this hot tip that there was this Broadway play in town called Suffs. I know, a weird name. And it was all about the women's suffrage movement. In other words, the battle that it took for women to get the right to vote. And so they wrote this musical about it called Suffs, and it's legit. It's good. I think it rivals other really popular musicals. I won't say which ones because I don't get in trouble, because people are passionate about their musicals. But it was so good, and the singing was amazing, the acting, the performing, it was awesome. But even better than that, the backdrop of the story was so important and interesting to watch. And I want to give some things that I took from it, because I think that there is some things to learn about recovery and about ourselves from this show that I watched. And this show is my daughter right now. She is in Newsies. I think I mentioned that on the last episode. She's performing tonight, actually. I'm going to Newsies, and Newsies is an interesting story because, similar to Suffs, it's about people advocating for themselves, really, when it seems like they have no chance to win, and they have no chance to change the systems at play. And so I'm going to Newsies like 4 times this week. I went to Suffs yesterday, and I'm like, okay, like, something about this, like, there is a battle to fight. And John Eldredge talks about this, how important it is to have a calling, to have a purpose, to have a battle to fight. And I think anyone without a battle to fight is someone who's just bumping through life a little bit and not fully experiencing what it's all about. And I think it takes a while to figure out what your battle is. But here's a couple things that I noticed from this that I think are interesting. And I want to give you some examples. So the women's suffrage movement back in, it was like 1918 or something. You think about that, that's not very long ago. That's 100 years ago. I said to my wife yesterday, I'm like, God, are we just like coming out of the dark ages? 100 years ago, women, it was looked at as almost ridiculous for women to vote. That to me is crazy. Like, it's crazy to me. And yet it was only 100 years ago. And they had to go through this big movement just to get a right to vote. There's a lot of interesting, like, little things that they hit on in the play about the culture. And one thing they talk about is when a woman gets married, she basically dies. And what that means is, back then, all of her finances, all of her identity, all of her everything is now tied to that man. That man is the guy that it all belongs to, and she is this support to him that just like she gives up everything, including her body to have babies, like everything she gives up because she gets married. And so I was watching it and I was like, wow. One of the interesting things that I noticed in the play was how the culture, I'll call it the unconsciousness of the culture. And what I mean by that is these change agents come along and they start making noise. And the older women who have been fighting the battle for a while are actually problematic to the change because they're still stuck in the old systems, and they're not open to actual like true reform, because they want to play careful, they want to be nice, they want to they don't want to cause too many waves, and they feel like they need to pander to the men and dance around things, and where the younger generation is coming up and saying, no, like we're taking a stand. We are taking a stand. And as I was watching that, I just thought it's interesting how our cultural norms perpetuate themselves, and they're really hard to break. And when someone comes along and says, hey, let's break that norm, usually what happens is that someone then becomes the enemy, even if what they're saying is truth and goodness. Think of examples of this, like Martin Luther King, perfect example. He comes along and what do you know? He's assassinated. Jesus comes along and says he's changing cultural norms and speaking out against a lot of those things, and they crucify him. I could go down the list, and you see these change agents, and hindsight, we look back and we're like, well, of course I agree with Martin Luther King. Of course I would have agreed with Jesus. Would you have in that moment at that time when all of the cultural norms were this thing and you're supposed to like go against that? Yikes. It's scary. I don't want everyone to think that I'm bad. I think there's been a really interesting thing happening in our culture where, and I won't get too into politics and wokeness and all this stuff, but there's this how do I describe it? I think there's some safety in expression of opinion right now, which is a good thing. But with that, what that means is a lot of different people can speak up and say, I'm fighting this fight. I'm fighting this battle. And other people will say, but I don't, is that a battle worth fighting? Or is your battle actually doing harm? And it's okay for them to question that, right? I think it's important for us to question ourselves. Why am I fighting this fight? Why am I fighting this battle? Is it just for self-serving purposes? Am I being called to this? Am I truly fighting for truth? I really need to check in with myself. Am I? Is that what I'm doing here? Or does this just give me an axe to grind? Or a way to play out my victim stance to the world? Or whatever it may be. Quick quote. I alone cannot change the world, but I can cast a stone across the waters to create many ripples. So that was Mother Teresa. I think she earned her ability to make a quote like that. One of the things about the play last night that was interesting, and being there with my wife was really cool. She said something like, how many people have come and gone that have changed my life that I'm not even aware of? How many courageous warriors have stepped up and heeded the call and made my life better that I don't even know exist? There's a lot of them. And I'm grateful for them. Whoever they may be. Let's talk about some of these cultural shifts. Like I said, I don't want to get political here, but just some examples. Like when I was raised, views on, I'll give you an example, views on homosexuality were very different than they are now. And I was in a culture, and it wasn't anyone's fault, but I was in a culture that was not very open to that, and not very loving and not very kind. And I remember some people coming along and saying, "Hey, like, we make like I'll give you an example. When I was in high school, a gay kid started a gay club at my high school, and it was like national news that they started this gay club. And so what they did at my high school is they got rid of all clubs in the high school because they couldn't allow kids to have a gay club at the high school. So none of us could have clubs because they wanted to make sure that the gay kids couldn't have a club. And at that time, and I hate to say this, but at that time, I thought that was the right thing to do. Ugh. I had no clue. Like what actually was going on. I was just kind of in the norms of the culture and the society that I was in. I'm not trying to make excuses. But certain things like this happen in our life, and I think sometimes what is happening goes against what's deep down internally inside of us, and we shove down that fight inside of us because we're afraid. It is happening today still in many different arenas and many different areas. And you can look at life in the places that you're in, and most people, what they do is they say, well, someone else can fight that fight. Why does it have to be me? And maybe you're not called to that. That's fine. But maybe you are, and you're just afraid. Another quote here. The world as we have created it is a process of our thinking. It can be changed, but it cannot be changed without changing our thinking. And that is Albert Einstein. So let me say that one more time. The world as we have created it is a process of our thinking. It cannot be changed without changing our thinking. So if we're pretty set in our belief systems and the thoughts that we have, then the world's not going to change. But when we open up to new thinking, the world itself can change. Now, it's interesting when you study change makers or change agents, they usually go through similar things. I just want to talk about it. First, they usually have a personal experience with their fight, with their cause. And I think that's obvious. And so they say, okay, I'm going to step up. I'm going to do something about it. And so they go and they start to speak up, speak out, say something, take a stand, have some boundaries. And when they do, usually they're just kind of laughed at and treated like they're small and nothing. And that's the first step. You say, oh, okay, whatever, that's cute. But if they persist, they start to gain momentum. And when they gain momentum, other people who have the same fight to fight start to join together and community starts to happen. Now, when community starts to happen, this is where you start to become a threat to the system, to the thinking that is going on right now. Because now you have listeners, you have followers, you have people that care. So now you're not just some like cute little thing that's like, trying to make a voice for yourself. Now it's like, like you might actually create some change. And the old system comes around and says, okay, what do we need to do to get you to shut up? What do we need to do to get you to just go away? Just go away. And at that point, usually there's like there's a power play that will happen. And in that power play, you're basically put in your place of like, this is how it's going to be. Now the warrior, the humble warrior, they don't take that and they don't just swallow that. That actually motivates them more to step further into their calling. And when they do that, it becomes a problem for the system because they're like, okay, the more we fight against this change agent, the louder they become. So what we need to do is just put an end to it. And that's where things like getting thrown in prison, getting thrown in jail, or even death happens, where they'll put people to death. Now, what happens when the prison or the yielding of power that's so great that it feels like you can't overcome it, the change agent goes through a moment of deep despair. Like deep despair. In the Suffs movie last night, they ended up getting thrown. I don't want to ruin it for people, but they end up getting thrown in jail. And then they go on this hunger strike and they almost die as a result. But during that, while they're think about like, while they're in jail, and I don't know if this is true history or not, but in this show, while they're in jail, having a hunger strike, think of like how alone and how desperate you would feel, but you're hanging on to that cause anyways. You're fighting that fight just by being in jail and not eating. Like I think about those people during the civil rights movement that sat in those cafeterias and were being beaten and pulled out of chairs. And in that moment, like think how scared they actually were, and they just stayed there. They just sat. They didn't just walk out and run away. That's heroic. But those moments of like deep despair and like there's nothing else but your cause, and you're willing to basically die on the battlefield for it. That to me is what we call a battle to fight. And I think when it comes to a battle to fight, depending on what that battle is, your cause and your purpose become greater than anything. Even your own life. So I'm not, what causes are there out there? I think of like, there's big ones, right? We could go fight against all kinds of things in this evil world. Although I don't think the world's that evil, by the way. But there is evil to fight. But for you, if you think about, if you just think about your own world that you live in, you have unique arenas that you've been in. You have unique perspectives that you have. You have unique information. You have unique talents. You have unique abilities. If you look at it all as a whole, what's that thing that gets to you that you're just like, that's not right, and I want to change that? And when you look at changing that, what's the next thought of like, well, what can I do about that? Or that's scary, or I don't want to step up and say something or do anything about that. Just notice that resistance, because that's the next step. And then ask yourself how God is calling you to use what they have given you in order to fight that battle. I believe that we're all here for a purpose. That battle might happen on a very small scale that is massive. Maybe your battle is helping that one kid out that goes to your school that just needs a little bit of extra love, and you're the one that can give it to him. Or that child in need. Maybe that battle is holding a banner and walking down the street. Maybe that battle is writing that blog post that, if you put your name on it, is there for the world to see, but you're going to do it anyways. Or standing in truth even when people won't understand and they'll judge you and they'll think that you're bad for standing in that truth. I think of my heroes in my life, like my grandmother was so humble, and her battle was just loving us. And she was a lunch lady at the school, and just her energy and her presence with those kids, I'm sure made a world of difference. I believe in you guys. I believe you have a battle to fight. I know you can step into your purpose. I hope as you've listened to me talk about this musical, that it's got you thinking a little bit about you and what you're doing here on this earth and what you can accomplish and the ripple effects that you can make. Until next time, keep on keeping on.